After spending some time with it, I thought it might be helpful to share what I have noticed so far, because this is the kind of power station that looks straightforward on paper, but you really understand it once you have to live with it for a few days. At its core, it is a large rechargeable battery with a built-in inverter, meant for running regular household gear when you do not have a wall outlet, or when the power goes out. I see it making the most sense for the way I actually use power stations, which is a mix of home backup for a few key devices, car camping, and the occasional work situation where I need to keep camera batteries, a laptop, and lights going for hours. The reason this one stood out to me is not a single gimmick. It is more about the combination of real output, very fast wall charging, and a port selection that fits modern devices without me needing a pile of extra adapters. It also has a few practical touches that I did not expect to care about until I did. Physically, it feels like a serious piece of equipment. It has a solid rectangular shape, and it is dense. The weight is a big part of the story. It is a little over 40 pounds, and when I picked it up the first time, I immediately changed my plan from carrying it around with one hand to moving it in short trips and keeping it closer to the car. There are handles on both ends, and I ended up using a two-hand carry most of the time. For me, it is portable in the sense that I can move it, load it, and reposition it around the house. It is not something I want to carry down a long trail. The outside has that black and yellow look, and the plastic feels thick. Nothing about it creaks when I lift it. I have set it down on concrete and on dirt at camp, and it has been fine. I still treat it like electronics, but it does not feel delicate. On the front, you have the main screen and most of the ports you will actually use. The display gives you the battery level, how much power is going out, how much is coming in, and an estimate of remaining time. I found it easy to understand, but I do wish it was brighter. Indoors, it is totally fine. Outside, especially in direct daylight, I have caught myself tilting it to get a better angle. For outlets, it gives you 3 regular wall-style plugs, which is what I end up using most during an outage. For smaller stuff, there are multiple universal serial bus ports. The 2 universal serial bus Type-C ports that can each do 100 watts mattered a lot in my use. I carry a laptop that gets picky if the charger is weak, and with this, I could plug in directly and it charged normally. That also meant one less brick in my bag. There are also universal serial bus Type-A ports for phones and accessories. I used those for smaller lights, a fan, and charging spare battery packs. There is a 12-volt car-style outlet and 2 barrel-style 12-volt ports, which I used for a small portable cooler and a couple of camping lights I already own. There is also a storage compartment on the top with a lid. That sounds like a small thing, but it is genuinely useful. I put the charging cable and a couple of small accessories in there, and it kept me from playing the usual game of searching through a bag for the one cable I need. Setup is simple. I charged it from a normal wall outlet in my house, then used it over several days to get a feel for how it behaves. The fast charging is real in the sense that it is dramatically faster than many other units I have used. From low battery to full, it landed around about an hour for me, sometimes a little more depending on what I was running while it charged. The key point is that I did not have to plan half a day around charging. If I realized I wanted it ready for a trip, I could plug it in, do a few things around the house, and it was basically ready. I also tested solar charging with a panel I already have, and it worked as expected. I will not pretend solar fully replaces wall charging for me, because sunlight and panel placement matter a lot, but it is helpful when I am parked somewhere for a while. I like having that option because it extends how long I can stay out without starting a car or finding an outlet. In daily use, the buttons and the layout made sense. I turned on the alternating current section when I needed the wall outlets and left it off when I was only charging phones. That might sound obvious, but some power stations have odd menu systems or confusing button logic. This one is straightforward. Now let me talk about real-world loads, because that is where people usually get surprised. I ran a full-size refrigerator during a home test, just cycling normally the way it would during an outage. The unit handled the startup surge without complaining, and once the fridge was running, the load settled into something manageable. I also ran a coffee maker, and it did what it needed to do. I tried a hair dryer briefly just to see if it could handle that kind of burst load. It did, but I would not plan on using a hair dryer for long on any battery power station, because it drains the battery quickly. It is more of a yes it can rather than a yes you should. I also used it like I personally use these most often, as a hub for smaller electronics. Laptop charging, camera battery charging, phones, a small light and a fan. In that scenario, it feels almost effortless. The remaining time estimate was stable, and I was not constantly thinking about it. That is the experience I want. I want to plug in my stuff, work, and not babysit the battery. Something else I tested was the uninterruptible power supply behavior. I plugged my internet modem and router through it, then simulated a power outage by disconnecting the wall power feeding the unit. The switch over was fast enough that my network stayed up. I did not see a reboot. I did this a few times because I do not trust a single test, and it stayed consistent. If you work from home or you just hate when your internet drops, this is one of those features you appreciate the first time the lights flicker. There is also a built-in light on the back. I ended up using it more than I expected. During a camping night, I set it near the tent and aimed the light outward, and it covered a decent area. It is not the same as a dedicated lantern, but it is useful. The flashing mode is there for signaling, which I hope I never need, but I understand why it exists. Noise is one of the trade-offs. When it is charging very fast or when I am pulling a lot of power, the cooling fans are clearly audible. In a quiet room at night, I notice it. At a campsite with normal background noise, it is less of a big deal, but it is not silent. I would not put it right next to my head if I am trying to sleep. Another practical limitation is the weight, which I already mentioned, but it affects everything. If you plan to move it often, you will feel it. For me, it works best when I treat it like something I transport in a car and then position near where I need power. I also noticed how it behaves when you ask for more than it can provide. If you overload it with something that demands more than its continuous rating, it does not always behave like a simple hard shutoff. It can reduce output to protect itself, and depending on the device, that might be fine or it might cause the device to act weird. I would not connect very sensitive equipment and then intentionally push the limits. In normal use, staying within its realistic range, I had no issues. Battery chemistry matters for long-term ownership, and this one uses lithium iron phosphate. I care about that because I want a unit I can use for years without feeling like I am burning through its lifespan every time I charge it. The cycle life claims are in the thousands, and I cannot personally verify that in a short test, but I can say the unit runs cool enough in normal loads, and it feels like it was designed for repeated use rather than occasional novelty use. Capacity-wise, it is large enough for meaningful home backup of essentials, and it is also expandable with an extra battery if you want more runtime. I tested the expansion connection briefly. It is simple, but adding more battery also adds more weight and more bulk. So I see that as something you do when you have a clear need, like longer outages or extended off-grid time. As for a mobile app in my use, I did not rely on one. I managed everything from the front panel because the screen already told me what I needed to know. If your routine involves checking status from across a room, you might care more about app support. For me, a power station is at its best when it does not require my phone to be useful. So overall, after using it, my impression is that the VTOMAN FlashSpeed 1500 is a practical power station that focuses on the basics done well. It has enough output to run real appliances, it recharges quickly from a wall outlet, and the port selection works for both home and travel use. The build feels solid, the storage compartment is genuinely handy, and the uninterruptible power supply behavior worked the way I hoped it would. The downsides are also real. It is heavy. The fan can be loud when it is working hard. The screen could be brighter outside. And like any unit in this class, you still have to be realistic about high-draw devices that can drain the battery fast. If your use looks like mine, meaning you want something you can depend on during outages, take car camping, or run tools and electronics away from an outlet. It fits that job without being complicated. To learn more about the VTOMAN FlashSpeed 1500, please check the comments section. Thank you for watching.